Rock Solid Families would like to thank Hoosier Ice House for being a proud sponsor of the Rock Solid Families podcast. In the heart of historic Lawrenceburg, Indiana, the Ice House is at the corner of Vine and High Streets. The historic building evokes a feeling of comfort with spacious indoor and outdoor dining, a large bar, and comfortable dining areas. Large enough to host parties, yet intimate enough to feel like your favorite neighborhood restaurant. So thank you again for the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Welcome to the Rock Solid Families podcast. I am Linda Hutchinson, the executive director of Rock Solid Families. What are you laughing at?
The fact that we were getting this show in today is amazing to me.
Yes, because
you are granny again.
And you're a grandpa again. I'm wearing blue because we just had another grandbaby. I just came back from Columbus, spent 3 days with our other grandkiddos while mommy and daddy went and had a baby boy.
But grandpa didn't get to go.
You were holding down the fort here.
Holding down the fort.
Yeah. No, actually, you could have traded me if you wanted to. But
that's scary. I can't do that baby thing that early.
No, it was exciting. And this is number 6. And now we have 3 boys, 3 girls.
We're 50-50, aren't we?
We are 50-50. And they did not know, which is kind of unusual that they didn't know if they were having a boy or girl. So we didn't know the name. We didn't know. So their
gender reveal was like in real time, wasn't it?
So Michael Briggs Hutchinson. So we have another Michael.
I think the name's going to go with Briggs, though, isn't
Briggs,
it?
Briggs, yes.
No, nobody calls anybody by the right name anymore.
Well, I think they're just brownieing up to my dad.
Yeah,
and her dad
they're trying
and
to.
Her uncle and his uncle. Yeah. So anyway, welcome to the world, Michael Briggs Hutchinson. Yeah. But that's not what we're talking about today. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today.
Well, sort of, kind of, because it's a result. He's a result of what we're actually going to talk about today.
Yeah. Well, we are talking about dating, and we're not talking about dating. We've done dating in teens before, but we're going to do with adults, whether young adults or middle age, maybe even later in the world.
Because we have so much to tell you on this. When was the last date you were on?
You were my last date.
Like 1987.
That's right.
Before we got married.
That's right. But we have worked with a lot of young adults.
And that's kind of really the perspective, guys, that we're going to take, because we actually get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? When, the nature of us is that we all seek relationship, right? We seek relationship, and we seek close, intimate relationship. I mean, even the hardened of us all desire a good relationship. And but when it doesn't work out well, there's just a lot of brokenness and hurt. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, here's some stuff that we can tell you from our work has not worked well, and maybe some things that have worked well.
But before we do, we want to jump into thanking our sponsors. We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions, Maxwell Construction, and the Hoosier Ice House for their support of the Rock Solid Families podcast and the larger ministry of Rock Solid Families. And if this is the first time you've tuned in because you're looking for a dating relationship and you're looking for some help, tune in and check us out at rocksolidfamilies.org, or if we can walk alongside you in this help of just really what things that we're going to talk about today, you can call our office at 812-576-ROCK.
Also, one quickie is that we have our banquet coming up here. And so March 7th, it is right around the bend, depending on when you're listening to this. So it's right around the bend. So we got a couple extra chairs left. Not too many, though. Honestly, it has really, we have been blown away by the amount of interest and support. So, but there are a couple chairs that have already been taken care of. You can come in. Yeah. It's a free meal. It's a free dinner. And just to join the support of the work that we do. So anyway.
March 7th, it's going to be at West Harrison, Indiana at the Higher Ground Conference and Retreat Center. And we would just love for you to come and just find out who we are and what we're about. But the show is important, hon, but it was also a special request from one of our clients. Like, hey, I listened to your podcast faithfully, and hasn't been really anything that kind of fits with what I'm going through. And so really we want to talk about this because, dating has changed, and I titled the show The Dating Game, but it's not a game, and we want to approach this from a Christian perspective, which we believe is the healthiest approach on dating and approaching relationships. And so we want to just do that caveat right there before we start anything.
And this is going to be, as you mentioned earlier, this could be somebody who's never been married before, and maybe they're just in the late teens or early adulthood, and they're in the process of still trying to find that mate. But oftentimes, the people that we're working with, they've already been through a relationship, potentially a marriage, and it's gone the wrong way in terms of divorce, and now you'll hear all the time, I hate dating because it's so hard, and they're afraid to fall back in old habits or mistakes again, and so they're very leery. So it's really, there's a lot to be learned from that, but there's also a lot of emotion that gets wrapped in, and that can really taint how you're going to date and who you're going to be with.
And if you've been sexually active with maybe several living partners that you've lived with or been married before, maybe once or twice before, sometimes there's this attitude of, what do I got to lose, right? Like, God doesn't want me to be alone. And so that might be not your approach, but it might be the approach of someone that you're going to date. And, Proverbs 4:23 reminds us to guard our heart above all else, because everything you do flows from it. And so I want us to look at every date through the lens of a good father who is crazy about you and has amazing plans for your life. And, that might be different than the hookup culture that you will experience, whether it be from a dating app or somebody that you get hooked up with by a friend. And so, this is what we want you to think about and pray about before you say yes or before that next date.
Yeah. So how about let's get in and let's start plugging into some things that we can help with. Okay. And again, if we were 18 years old, this is probably not the type of advice we would give, right? Because by then we would have been very much of the world and in the whatever is going on.
Oh, you're talking about when we were 18.
If we were, that's right. but we're way older than that now. And so what we are saying is, man, there's a reason why God creates the picture of marriage that he does. And it oftentimes conflicts with the picture that the world gives. And so first and foremost, guys, if you really want to approach this right, you got to find who your connection is with God in terms of how you identify with God, how you understand God and God's ways and God's purpose. Because if you are defining how you think your life's going to go and it doesn't have anything to do with God, it will be of your flesh. And you will be attracted to, and people will be attracted to you that are of their fleshly desires. And that might be all fun and exciting for a bit, but that will be shortly lived. And so the idea here, first off, is like, okay, wait, like what's God's way? And so this might take you some time, right?
Yes.
Depending on your background and your history and your knowledge. If you I don't even know what you're talking about with this God thing. Slow down and start getting some counsel. Start talking and say, well, what would it mean to be on purpose to serve God and do things God's way? Yeah.
Way too many men and women will go look for something in a date that only God can provide. And so we have this God-shaped hole. Pascal was an early philosopher that said we have this God-shaped hole in our hearts that only he can fill. And so we want you to find that first, because that will shape everything you do from then on. The second thing is to be the best version of yourself, whether you're dating or not. So sometimes I've seen people who have kind of, maybe they've broken up with somebody or haven't been able to find a date, and they kind of let themselves go, where they just have lost their motivation to even shower or, exercise or eat right or, get good sleep. And they're just doing a lot of partying, or they're just doing a lot of sitting around on a couch. And so you want to be the best version of yourself. And, Andy Stanley is a mega preacher that said one time, he had a whole series, Love, Dates, and Heartbreaks. And he said, you want to be the person you're looking for is looking for. And so be that now. Yeah.
How often do we deal with people who break up, whether it's a long-term relationship breakup or an actual marriage that ends in divorce, and we find them quickly getting back into relationships.
Yeah.
And and we understand why, so we're not trying to be critical of that. I mean, people want companionship, that they want to have some fun, they want to get their life started back up again. But there's a reason why the second marriages break up at a rate of 70% versus the first one's breaking up at 50%. Did you take the time to be the best version of yourself?
Yeah.
Most of us don't even operate close to the best version of ourselves, all right? And so the idea that you would take some time and go, all right, what was I doing in that first relationship? Who was I in that first relationship? Am I really clear on who I am and what I really want and what my value system is? And so, and this is really a process of, we've seen before, and I know the first time I saw this, I was like, there's no way that you should not get back into serious relationship until 3 years after your divorce.
Yeah.
And when you first hear that, you're like, yeah, that's crazy. But when you start putting together all of the time it takes, wait, do I need to be a better version of myself, lose some weight, start taking care of myself, get my eyes straight on God, all of these different things. Before you know it, you could easily have 3 years in it.
Do I have emotional wounds that have not healed right? I mean, we've had clients that have gone from abusive relationship to abusive relationship without really healing that codependency or that need to please, without really realizing what they're not getting in return. So, become the best version of yourself, regardless if you're dating or not. The next one is look at a potential partner at the places you enjoy being at. So if you're a fitness buff like you, not that you're looking anymore, but, to join a gym, or if you're a concert lover, take some friends with you and look for another group of people that are hanging out, or your workplace. Maybe it's big enough where there's single coworkers getting together after work. So, you can look around in the places that you want to be at, what your passions are, what your interests are.
Can I put a little caveat in this?
Yeah.
All right. And that would be, some things you need to be very aware of and leery of. And I say that because if your fun place to hang out involves probably a lot of drinking, it is really going to taint how you're going to interact with the next person you're going to be in a relationship with. And this is not a big anti-drinking show. That's not our deal at all. But, we also know what drinking and even drugs do to our judgment and our willpower and our desire to keep things right. And so if you're like, well, you know what, the place I like to hang out is at the bar or whatever, and there's a lot of drinking going on, there's a good chance, guys, I hate to break the news to you, but there's a good chance that you're going to find yourself in a place that you're not going to be happy with 5 years down the road.
Yeah. And we're not here to judge you, because we met on a college spring break in Daytona Beach.
And it's only through God that
over a case of beer, right? And so that's not what we want to build the relationship on. But you also need to know what you're looking for. So write down the important qualities and values that you want in a potential partner before you go on that date. Star the ones that are non-negotiable. This could be like shared beliefs and your moral values, your character traits, life goals. Figure that out now so that you won't be more tempted to compromise when this good-looking guy walks in, or this sweet-talking man or girl walks up.
I like the idea you use that word non-negotiable, right? Like there are certain things that, especially if you're looking for that life partner, ought to be on a non-negotiable list, right? And these are things that you better be sure on, because if you're willing to waffle on the big things, you're going to waffle on any and everything else. And so you really want to lock that down and say, no matter what, I'm looking for a Christian partner, or I'm looking for somebody who likes doing these things, or wants to have kids, or doesn't want to have kids, or whatever.
That's a non-negotiable for a lot of, it should be. If you want children and they're refusing to have a family, like, you need to decide, will I be okay with that?
Right.
And you better make sure you are, because I've had a lot of people who said they would because they thought this was going to work. And then they try to change that partner's mind. And that partner was very clear from the beginning, I don't want children.
Right.
And so that's not fair. That's not fair to think you're going to change their mind down the road. And I don't think we should go any further without talking about dating apps, because we get a lot of questions about, is it biblical? Well, the word app was not in the Bible back then, but they're really worried, like, would God be okay? And so according to Pew Research, 30% of adults have used a dating app at least once. once. And 75 to 80, this blew my mind, 75 to 80% of them are men. Why do you think that is, Mr. Man? Why do you think that is?
I think I think sometimes women, or the general idea is that men are bold and they're out there, take charge. Most men I know are much more subtle. This is very intimidating. They don't want to make mistakes. And so if they can go through a bit of a process of gleaning and filtering, it's one thing when you're dating and you're 18 years old and your buddy is helping you. And you're kind of like, well, yeah, you talk to her. I know her. I've met her. She's nice and so on. But when you're 32 years old, that you've lost some of your buddies that do that. And so looking for a filtering system to help clean up the process. And as to your point, hon, dating apps are not good or bad. They're just a tool. They're a vehicle.
Right.
And so now how people might use them, you could get a lot of smut off of that.
Yeah.
But the idea itself, it doesn't make it a bad, evil tool.
Yeah, there is some really, and again, I'm not into dating apps, but I've heard some really nasty
Well, the ones
stuff.
that I've used, I am teasing people.
Back in the 80s, there wasn't even the internet back then. No, but yes, there is some very ugly stuff out there where, you can answer a lot of questions and kind of cut straight to the chase of what you're wanting and what you will do and won't do. But, that's a $5 billion industry, hon, $5 billion. And, the individuals between age 43 and 58 have the highest success rate, with 72% stating that they met someone through a dating app that led to a romantic relationship. So, again, we're not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that the other things we're talking about in today's show, make sure that you don't compromise them for the sake of a dating app and that what that's going to look like or who you're going to attract. Because, man, if you attract with the wrong things, you're going to get the wrong kind of people.
I heard, who was it, hon, that was speaking the other day, that if you're looking for a compatible partner, it was Father Meyer. Father Meyer was talking about the idea that compatibility between man and woman is ridiculous. Like I can't wait to find my compatible
Thus
spouse.
says the priest.
Yeah, and he says that because we are man and woman, we're never going to find this like perfect compatible because we think differently. We're two very different organisms from the sense of how a man's brain thinks and how a woman's brain thinks. And so, like, you looking for this perfect compatibility is kind of like, what, do you want to marry yourself? You know? And so that idea that there are things that you're not going to be necessarily compatible with, but you can mesh together. And one of the things that is the glue to the meshing is the common faith. Yeah. All right. Because now that if we can both approach faith from a very similar perspective, meaning, listen, you do God this way, I do this God, but we're both chasing God. Yeah. Right. We're both chasing God and we want to do life right by him. And so that's how we start to get a greater, higher likelihood of compatibility in the relationship.
Man, and the Bible is pretty clear in 2 Corinthians 6:14. It warns us about unequally yoked. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? So, I mean, he's talking about intimate relationships, whether it be a partnership in business, but also a partnership in life. And so you just save yourself a lot of heartache if you don't, how am I saying this?
If you get with somebody who is
unequally yoked.
You can save yourself hardship if you get with somebody who you are equally yoked with. Yes. And I can just second the motion. I mean, I think that is very, very prevalent in what we see, that the attraction will bring you together for the early dates. It will even get you into the wedding rings. But when you start to compile all of the stresses of life, kids and jobs and all that, and then we start to find ourselves not compatible with the equally yoked thing, that's when things start to fall apart because we don't solve problems the same way then. One of us uses God and the other one is all about their own way or science or logic or whatever. And so, man, that gets messy.
Well, and that's what the foundation of Rock Solid Families is all about.
Yeah.
Building on the rock of Jesus Christ. And if you're not, then you're building on sinking sand, is what Matthew 7:24-27 talks about. But, set the boundaries. Number 2 is set clear boundaries from the beginning. It's a lot easier when your date knows your boundaries up front. What's that line for you? It definitely avoids those awkward and maybe potential dangerous situations down the road. So don't put yourself in there where you're tempted morally or ethically to do something that you don't feel comfortable with.
This one is tough, hon.
What?
This next one, or something to be aware of. Because when you read it at first, you go, absolutely yes. But the idea here is be honest and open along the way.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, we think we belittle stuff like, well, it's not that big of a deal, but it becomes a bigger deal later. Or sometimes we're embarrassed about something that happened in our past, or maybe we just feel shame about it and guilt, okay? Anything that you feel like could create guilt in you or upset your partner, you need to be honest about that stuff. Whether it was a past relationship you had or an addiction issue or anything that carries heavy weight. Now, again, are you going to explore and open up every past
disclose
thing?
on the first date?
You're 50 years old and you're dating and you're going to go, okay, well, this is going to be another 50 years of me showing everything that I have in storage. But definitely the big boxes here, you got to open up and you got to say, you just need to know this is a part of me.
Yeah.
It's what we refer to as baggage oftentimes, right? And we got to be honest and open about that stuff.
And don't string people along. If you do not see a future in the relationship, if you're seeing red flags, then be honest about that. Don't just use them for a free concert or a free dinner. That's not fair. So be honest and open, and that way you have no regrets. And yes, it may not work, but be honest with that and the concerns that you have, so that they're not stringing someone along and making them think that there's a future.
And it kind of makes me think also sometimes because maybe we were in a relationship previously with somebody who they had a characteristic or trait that drove us crazy, okay, that we all of a sudden jump into somebody new that provides the emptiness that other person did in that particular area. Okay, so maybe the first person you were married to was financially very not secure, just almost reckless, and all those kinds of things. And so you were tired of living paycheck to paycheck and penny to penny. And so that relationship goes away, and you come into another one, and you find somebody who all of a sudden money's not an issue. Yeah. That might feel nice, but you better be very careful because you might realize that, oh my gosh, there's so many other things that are not lining up here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So be careful that you're not just trying to rescue your emptiness from a long-time relationship. Which is
why this other one's so important, to focus on getting to know each other. And also you want to do shared activities and also group activities where you can kind of see his or her character with other people. Are they quick to fly off the handle? Are they kind of gilding the lily and not really being honest and open? Are they like the funny guy or the flirtatious woman? And you really do, like I mentioned before, want to notice those red flags. And then you want to circle back around and seek the guidance of those other individuals, trusted individuals that maybe you went to dinner with, or maybe you went to a party with, and ask them their honest feedback and give them the right and the permission to be honest with you, because you might have those blinders on, like you said.
You got to say exactly what you just said, hon. You have to say, hey, I want to ask you something, and you have to be brutally honest with me. I mean, because for the most part, people do not want to offend. They don't want to hurt, especially if they start to see you getting excited or passionate about this particular relationship. But you have to, especially early on, say, I give you full permission to speak, okay? And you got to hear what they've got to say.
Yeah, and you also want them to ask specifics, because if they just I just don't like him.
Right.
Well, what is it about him or her that they are not comfortable with? And maybe it is because they are a heavy drinker, or maybe because they are kind of lying or flirting with somebody. But these are some things to keep in mind as we're kind of wrapping up here. And that is, if you play with around fire, you're bound to get burnt. So keep in mind the places you're hanging out and the people you're attracting and what you're wearing and how you're acting. And so if you are the life of the party that drinks a lot, or you're provocatively dressing to kind of attract attention, be very careful, because what you're attracting, you may not want to have as a long-term potential partner.
Yeah. Well, guys, at the end of the day, we understand that we are all designed for relationship. God laid it on our heart, and so we want relationships to be good and healthy. But at the end of the day, they are only good and healthy if they're serving God first, right? They're pleasing to God. And so we'd ask you, one of the things that's really important is, from the get-go, if you're dating somebody and it's getting kind of fun and exciting and interesting, invite them to church. Invite them to church, and because if you can find common ground in the church setting, so many other things will start to take a better hold of making sense to you. So anyway, I think that's about all.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have a lot of other things other than if you are getting...
Hey, I do want to say something, because I will say that
breaking news.
This is really for the women out there, because there are a lot of women out there who just desire to have that intimacy with somebody. They want that partner, and I know men do too, but women are emotional beings. And when they don't have that emotional being, they get very impatient, and then they get really down on themselves, and they really do a lot of negative self-talk about, I'm just not worthy, or I'm not pretty enough, or maybe I don't sleep around enough, or whatever that is. And please, I would just encourage you to get some help. Have somebody walk alongside you in this season of waiting, because I don't want you to jump in and do something you're going to later regret, or have just real regrets about. And so I just would encourage you that be patient. God hears you. He sees you. He knows what you need and what you desire. And He is going to knock your socks off. And I don't know what that looks like, but trust in Him. And that's where you'll see life's changing and the peace coming over.
Yeah. There is, you may have not really thought you were at this level, but something that we do, we always offer premarital coaching, okay? But you may not even be throwing the word marriage around. But, here you are, you're in your 30s or 40s, maybe this is a second or third relationship, and you want to get this one right. Feel free to come to us, right? And we'll call it whatever you want. We'll call it coaching or relationship coaching, but we'll run through all of these different things of this compatibility on all these different fronts, on kids, on money, on faith. And so come on in, and actually you will be so much more money and well-being ahead by just saying, you know what, we did our due diligence and we find ourselves aligned. Or maybe you go, you know what, and we've had that. Like, we've had some people are like, we dated for 3 years, we're in our 60s or 70s, and we just did it for companionship, but it's really time for us to go on our way.
Yeah, we've had couples in their 70s and 80s, widows, divorced, and looking for love. So, do yourself a favor and don't settle for less than God's best for your life and for your relationships. And trust me, when you do relationships His way, you will find great peace and joy, regardless if you're married, whether you're dating, living single. And so that's just what we want to encourage you to keep in mind.
All right. We want to thank our sponsors again. We thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and Hoosier Ice House for all of their support and contribution towards the work that we get to do here at Rock Solid Families. Again, if you need help in any way, you can get us at rocksolidfamilies.org, or you can call our office at 812-576-ROCK. That's 7625. And so, hon, I think that's all we got.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to the Rock Solid Families podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200. Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.